fine school district, one of the most dynamic, inspirational principals in our entire district, Bill Kappenhagen.
Thank you for that introduction. So I'm going to go a little bit off script, and I hope you will put up with it for just a few minutes while I tell you my journey to quiet time at Burton High School. So I have the privilege of working literally a block and a half away from Visitation Valley Middle School. And when I first was named principal at Burton High School, Principal Durkee walks by me in the auditorium as he's about to graduate his 8th graders to the high schools. And he says, "Welcome to the big leagues, Kappenhagen." And I'm like, wow, I don't even know this guy. He's just intimidating me. But, sorry, I can do this, I can do this. I swear I can do this. And, quickly I realized that Jim Durkee would be a critical friend of mine. That I could actually just pick up the phone, push the out button, and dial 4590, and I could have Jim Durkee on the phone within seconds. And sometimes I would just call him and say, "Hey Chief, what's going on today?" And he'd just tell me his little story, and he'd tell me some great things that are going on at school. And he would tell me, guess who was at my school last week? We had Tiger Woods here, we had the PGA, and we had the US Cup people come in. And then one night I call him and he says, "I have this program at my school, you should come check it out. It's called the Quiet Time, and where we train our kids to meditate." And I'm from Chicago. For 10 years. And I always had this, stereotype of San Francisco. Conversation that day kind of proved it right. I'm like, oh, no. I guess the Godfather. And don't say no to the Godfather. I mean, not that he's intimidating, but because, he's an awesome person. He's a visionary. He's brilliant. He's well-connected. Like I said, he's the Godfather, right? So I agreed to show up at his school. Literally I could walk there in 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, if it weren't for the terrain. And so I showed up, and I walk into his auditorium, and you all saw this, this wonderful picture of a bunch of 8th graders in his auditorium, but I got there before the kids showed up, right? So the kids all enter the auditorium just like you would imagine 8th graders to enter an auditorium. They're all loud and yelling across the room to each other, and "Hey, you're in my seat, blah, blah, blah," all this stuff. And it was really just a class meeting. It wasn't a meditation session as it was in the entirety. So before I was allowed to speak about Burton High School, really I went there to recruit new 8th graders that come to Burton High School as 9th graders. And before I was allowed to even address them, he says, "I want you to watch this company." And he says, "Okay, we're going to start quiet time." And he rings the bell. And having been a middle school principal, I actually know the middle school principal very, very well. And the little bell's trying to get these kids to be quiet. And literally, I didn't know what to expect at all. He rings the bell, and there's total quiet. It was amazing. And they weren't just quiet for, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. They were quiet for the entire duration. And none of them in that room needed any redirection. None of them had to go, no teacher had to go up to them and say, "Shh, settle down." None of them. All of these kids were perfectly meditating and were quiet. It was fascinating to me. So that was my first experience with quiet time, was going to this valley watching his 8th graders. Jim says to me, he says, "You have to get this at your school. I'll have the quiet time people show up at your doorstep. They'll be in your office, and they'll talk to you about how to get this thing started." And I'm still really quite skeptical. This is my 2nd year or 3rd year as the principal of Burton High School. We had just spent tons of time thinking about the high school reform. All these new additions to the school. And we had started doing all of this work. We had gone to careers in the academy. We had just published the 9th graders and the teaching board, all of our freshman academy team. And we had just really legitimately started all of these initiatives. And I didn't actually I couldn't figure out how quiet time was going to fit into this work. On top of which, I had asked the faculty to do work that's really outside of their, teaching and learning responsibilities. I clustered them all the teachers into different groups, and I called them task force. And there was one task force in charge of positive school culture, and one in charge of student support services, and one in charge of a variety of different things that we thought were important for us to really analyze and think through. So I met, with the quiet timers, Laurent and Noah, and they talked to me about what this would mean, and I had all these questions. I'm like, so you really want me to steal time from English instruction? You want me to steal time from math instruction? That's the thing that I get most dinged on is when the kids don't do well on the CSDs or the STAR test at the end of the year, and I have to get them into college, and if I'm taking time away to meditate, how am I going to get them into college? I really could not wrap my brain around this. So I had mentally decided that I was going to sabotage this whole thing, all by doing this, by not only having to say no to the guy. So I put some of my most meanest and my most ferocious teachers, who are really very good teachers, don't get me wrong, but who have such high expectations of their kids and have such high expectations of their principal that nobody can really ever meet these expectations. But they're fantastic teachers, don't get me wrong. So I sent these two teachers off to Visitation Valley, and I was like, hey, Jim Durkee's the principal of this valley. He's phenomenal. He's my mentor. He's amazing. He does this program called Quiet Time. Go to that school and check it out and come back and let me know what you think of it. So I tell the Quiet Timers that I'm going to send these people to Visit Valley to observe this. They go, they come back and they're like, Kappenhagen, you won't believe it. We love it. 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, we love it. And I was like, oh no, how is this possible? I love it. You're supposed to come back and say, forget it, and then I can always explain these teachers. So I got one more obstacle. I'm like, you know what? There's no way I can do this without the buy-in from the entire faculty. So in my faculty, it's just they're the teachers. They have their own particular agenda. They know what they want. They have their image of what instruction's supposed to be like, and I'm certain meditation is not going to be it. And so I tell these two teachers to have Mr. Durkee sent some teachers to our faculty to present, and they sent the quiet timers as well. And they presented, and they showed some slides, and they talked about brain research. And then at the end of it, I told the faculty that they were allowed to vote. And to me, the secret is that I'm not the principal that allows the faculty to vote very often. But I did let them vote on this one, and I did make it very clear that if we're going to do quiet time, we're going to have to add 25 minutes to the instructional day. And that's one of the lessons I learned from the East Coast. The thinking of more time, better, more time in school, the more learning that's going to happen. So I'm like, hey, this is a perfect excuse to add more time to the school day. And the teachers voted something like 67% over not having quiet time in their school. So they really wanted this program at Burton High School. It was fantastic. And not in my view, but I was like, well, that's my excuse for adding more time to the school day. We'll see how that goes. And with that, so I want to actually take a cue from Mr. Durkee. Where are my quiet time Burton High School people? Can you bring up the house lights so that we can actually see some of these pioneering faculty members? If you're a Burton High School only installed the quiet time program at Burton High School with the students, right? So it's a rollout process. We spent the fall and part of the early spring training the teachers and really understanding exactly how this impact was going to happen at our school site. But once we started training the students, which would be February of 2011, you will notice that there is a market incline. It's about 1.6% average daily attendance at Burton High School, and that's just over a very short period of time. And that's no easy feat when you're thinking about high school and student attendance, where students often vote with their feet. So if they're not getting what they want, they don't come in the building and they take off somewhere else. Next slide, please. This is my last slide, and this is the one that I'm absolutely most proud of. And actually, if you 14, 15, 16, and one year I think it was actually 17%. And the really interesting thing about this data to me, if you just look at the window between August to February, through February, for the previous years, I had been the principal. There was nothing different at Burton High School. We had started all these new initiatives, but nothing was actually having a positive impact in the reduction of my suspension of students. My deans of students, who are the people who are, the bad cops at Burton High School, who are the ones who fuss at the kids and then ultimately suspend them. And I ultimately suspended them, suspension notices. But, my plan for reducing the suspension rate at Burton High School before quiet time was wagging my finger in front of the dean saying, "Stop suspending my kids." But that wasn't working because you can see that, the years that we were practicing that, it was hovered around 16%. We installed quiet time February 2011 with the kids. That's when we started to install it. We started training kids, and we had already built out the schedule school day for this. But that's when we started training kids. So just for this current school year, my suspension rate has been halved by this innovative, out-of-the-box program. And I'm very proud of that. And that's really because of the diligence and the foresight of my faculty and with the fidelity that we've implemented this. So with that, I wanted to thank so much the Quiet Time people, and I definitely want to honor the Godfather, Principal Durkee, for his foresight in order to help us think through and how we could actually install a program like this at schools. And the last thing I want you to walk away with is I want you to think about what better place these kids are in because they've been able to stay in school longer, not just simply because they added time to the school day, but because I'm not sending them home, or because they feel comfortable, they feel safe, they have an opportunity to take time out in the morning and take time out in the afternoon to really reflect on where they are and what's going to happen. I am convinced that my students are better off because we have equipped them with a tool for success that they will always be able